All right. Hey, what's up, guys? Coach Mac, Play Fast Football. Sorry, it's been a while since our last YouTube live, but it's that time of year. Spring football for us, we're about 11, 12 practices in, end of the school year. A lot of stuff going on. Been a little bit busy, so couldn't jump on, but I figured tonight would be as good a night as any. Not a ton going on, maybe hockey or NBA games, but nothing much going on in the football world, obviously, with the draft just ending and now rookie camps and OTAs and most college spring games done. So thought this would be um, a good time to jump on, just give you a little bit of an update about what's going on, what we're doing. Like I said, we are now 11 practices in. We got four more practices this week, two next week, and then we play a game. So right in the middle of our spring football stuff, and going through some different stuff, trying to play some things differently than we have in the past. Working on some different things, trying to figure out with our kids this year what we do best, what works for us, and for us with the opportunity to coach spring football. That's kind of what spring football is about. You're trying to identify players on a roster, guys that can. Maybe guys that were JV guys last year or guys that were backups last year, trying to see how much they've developed in the last 6 or 7 months or 5 months in the offseason. Trying to see if they can handle certain positions, if we need to make any position changes. For us, always trying to find that middle safety spot if we're going to play three high, trying to figure out if three high is still our deal or if we need to change. Looking at some things that gave us issues last year and trying to see if we can come up with some answers in the spring, whether it be formational issues, personnel groups, certain run plays or certain pass game concepts that gave us some issues. So, the spring is that kind of, for us at least, that kind of feel out period where we're repping some new things, doing some things differently with how we're trying to play some of our fronts and fit some of our runs. And, just using it as a time period of seeing what works, seeing what we like, what we don't like, seeing if certain things that other people are doing or ideas that we picked up in the offseason are conducive for us. You got to remember as a coach, especially at the high school level, things that you see, things that you study, things that you pick up at clinics, things that you get from other schools, they don't always work at your place. So, sometimes you have to be able to use trial and error. You got to be able to experiment a little bit and see how you can do some of those things. One of the experiments for us is versus two back tight end sets. We're trying to play more oaky front stuff than we are tight front stuff. That now requires us to fit things from the linebacker level a little bit different. It now takes 5 techniques that have to learn how to spill, how to surf, a bunch of things that in a tight front we don't really have to do. And trying to see if we can bounce back and forth between the two fronts, see if our backers can fit both, see if our four eyes can play four eyes and 5 techniques. I'm still experimenting with playing 4 down stuff with 3 high behind it, trying to figure out how we can cancel out gaps and get it to fit similar to our tight front stuff. So, just kind of a little trial and error right now, a little experiment. Again, obviously trying to find the right personnel, trying to find the kids that are going to help us win football games, the kids that are competitive, the kids that work hard, the kids that love to compete, the kids that love to practice. And a lot of those kids are getting opportunities now that they hadn't gotten in the past. So got to see which kids can handle it, which kids can be a part of that, first unit now that are getting every down reps. Can they handle the coaching? Can they handle, the stress level that comes with being a starter if they're not used to being starters? And just kind of trying to feel out the whole thing while still trying to get better technically and fundamentally, right? So the spring should be, a lot of work at techniques and fundamentals and reads and eye discipline and where your eyes belong and, based on coverages and fronts and run fits and, we do a ton of tackling circuits. We do tackling circuits pretty much every day, if not obviously full live all the time, but There'll be one day a week where a lot of those tackling circuits are live. The other days they're probably thud tempo or a fit tempo where we're just working on leverage, two-man vice stuff. Um, we're working on near foot, near shoulder. We're working on closing. We're working on tracking. All the things that you need to be to do to be good tacklers. So you're always going to work in anytime it's you get a bonus like a spring season, kind of like um, a college spring football session. It's always going to be a time where you're obviously repping what your base is, right? So we're still a tight front three high team. We're experimenting with doing some things differently with the front and seeing if we can play it. If we can't, so be it. Then we can't. We know what our base is. We know what we do well. Experimenting with some ways to protect our tight front stuff. So the things that give us issues, if we can't play multiple fronts or we can't play four down stuff from our three high, um, then we're going to figure out ways to protect our tight front deal. And that's what the spring is all about. And got a couple new coaches out there. So, the spring's also about getting new coaches acclimated to a practice plan, meetings, time periods of what we do, what the script looks like, what the practice plan itself looks like, um, you know, where you should be coaching different drills from, when you should be coaching from behind, maybe when you should be coaching from behind the offense, maybe when we should be on the sideline in live periods working on our operating procedure and teaching those coaches how to coach from the sideline because let's face it, eventually in a game that's where you're going to coach from, right? So a lot of times the defensive guys stand behind the defense and then it just creates a cluster in the middle of the field when the offense is trying to throw balls down the field and do the things that they're working on. So you got to get guys used to coaching and from different positions. So getting your coaching staff acclimated to all those things is also a part of spring football. And, we're blessed to have it. I feel fortunate to have spring football. In the state of Florida, I've been down here for 23 years now. So spring football's been a part of my coaching life for the last 23 years. I know a lot of guys don't get a chance to coach in the spring. So, I think I've kind of, at this point in my career, I have a feel for what the spring should be. I am certainly not afraid to try things if they don't look good or they don't work. As long as you know what your base is. I don't really like getting away from what our base is and just trying brand new things to try them. I like mixing things in. I like seeing what we can do and what fits our personnel because our personnel is different than last year. Just trying to get a feel for your team, trying to get a feel for your personnel, trying to get a feel for the things that this year's roster does well as opposed to last year. Maybe some things you did well with last year's roster, aren't always things that you're going to do well with this year's roster. So, just kind of going through all those things, feeling it out and trying to get better every day. It's a struggle in the spring sometimes. There's ups and downs, just like anything else. There's a lot of highs and lows, with what you're doing and what you're trying and days that look decent and days that look bad. And, you got to stick to your guns. You got to keep moving forward. You got to let your kids understand that this is, hey, sports edits, how are you? But, this is a deal where we're trying to get better as a football program, but we're trying to get better for August, September, October, November. Yeah, we play a game next week, but we're not necessarily trying to lay it all on the line for the results of that game. We are, oh no, that Curran, how do you have that YouTube handle? How, what is that YouTube handle, buddy? CEWCO Sports Edits. I feel like your YouTube handle should be Dome Hats. Um, but let me make sure this is the right Curran. If it is, I actually just coached him in a middle school game on Saturday where he was the quarterback of a winning team. So that was something I was going to talk about a little bit. Current. Hey, Kuroga, how are you? Current Edward Whitaker. CEW Creeks Outlaws. Oh, nice. Now I get it, Current. Now I get it. Thank you. Um, So, um, so one of the things I was going to talk to you guys about was during the spring, I also helped a buddy of mine, the owner of Dome Hats, Jeff Whitaker, coach a middle school team. He is a head coach of a middle school team. So that was a great experience. I love, um, obviously, football is football, and I love being a part of coaching football. But at the same time, it's, it's interesting and unique for me to go down to the middle school level and start figuring out. Um, the things that those kids really need as opposed to the things that we need. Um, Obviously, they just played a spring game, so trying to help put a game plan together for them with something that I think they can get accomplished in a limited time, based on, we had some fifth, sixth, and seventh graders, and that's eye opening trying to remember what grade those kids are in and what you're asking them to do. Some of those days, I went straight from our practice to their practice, and trying to remember the things that are difficult for 11th grade kids are really difficult for fifth grade kids, and what you should be teaching those kids. But great experience, won the game. Curran played awesome at quarterback, did a really good job. Actually had a pick that he returned for about 50 yards that he probably should have returned for 70 yards, but um, doesn't really trust how fast he is. So he cut back into the pain where all the pursuit's coming from, but he'll learn from that. But had a good experience with that. Did two middle school videos talking about installing offense and defense, and we ran pretty much all gap schemes on offense. We ran you know, um, a ton of power stuff. Did a really good job through some bubble screens and some now stand-up screens that went for big yards, pushing the ball to the perimeter. Some things that were kind of RPO in nature, reading an overhanger and outside backer. So really good experience for those kids. Good experience for that O-line, getting used to blocking gap schemes. Good experience for the tailbacks, getting used to how to run gap schemes. Good experience for the quarterback, throwing some push motion, flare stuff to tailbacks, and then based off the outside linebacker overhangs movement, throwing some stuff to a slot receiver. Completed a vertical route down the field. So all in all, good day for them. Defensively, we were 4-2-5, cover three, one high stuff, which is different than what we play at the high school level, but there's a reason for that. At that level, I don't know if you need to be pattern matching from split field. Um, you know, we were one high, we were 8-man front, we were balanced everything. We had some simple motion adjustments. We could line up the formations. We had two pressures put in that were all zone pressures where it was easier to teach those kids how to pressure and just play similar deals behind it. I would never teach those kids the way I teach my high school kids of how we're trying to do things with those zone pressures. So, good experience. They got a win. Coach Whitaker got his first middle school win. So good for those kids. I look forward to helping them as much as I can in the summer, and I will definitely be there as much as I can in the fall, which is difficult for me to do with my current job. But there are some nights where I can get out there, and then based on when they play their games, I think I'll be able to sneak out to a couple of those deals. So really good experience for me. Glad he could be on. Good people, obviously people that I work with. You see at the top, the at Dome Hats Twitter handle, all of our partners that I listed up there, that help us with Play Fast Football. And I love marketing for them and helping them because they're great people, great company. So getting back to our spring stuff, right now it's our kids are really indoctrinated to tight front football, our inside backers and how we fit things and how we line up the formations and when we are a 3-2 box and when we're a 3-1 box and how we adjust coverages off of that. It's making some of the Okie front stuff, which is basically, a 0 and 2 5s and linebackers that are becoming plug fit guys instead of what I would call scrape fit. We play so much tight front for the last 2 years. Our kids are used to fitting things that way. And that's really the best way that we play football. The issue is there's certain personnel groups, certain formations, 3-man surfaces, 12 personnel, 2 tight ends. There's some things that really 3 high tight front stuff is not conducive to. And so we're using the spring right now to figure out, do we have answers? What are those answers? And I went to Coastal Carolina and I got some information on them on how they play some of their Okie front plug fit stuff. And, we're giving it a shot right now. We're not great at it in the first 10 days. We always if we scrimmage or if we go live against the offense, we revert back to tight front as much as we can. We're still a movement team. We're not a great base defense team, which drives me nuts because movement stuff on defense is good and bad. When you have to move on defense, there's going to be things that you move into and there's going to be things that you move out of. I don't like having to move as a base. I've never liked having to move as a base, even when we were a 3-4 slant and angle team. That's never what I really wanted to teach day one. I tried to teach under front stuff day one before we ever got into slant and angle. I think personally you should teach kids block rec, block destruction, gap responsibility, how to fit things without moving. And then your movement stuff becomes your protection pieces and how you protect your calls on defense. So, it's okay to move. We have to. We're still not very big on defense. So, our movements, our stunts, our pressures are things that we do fairly well, but they're not good every down. So you've got to be able to develop an every down defense, and that's something that we're working on right now. By all means, we could play tight front three high. It's very good for what it's good for, but we need answers to other stuff, and that's kind of what we're doing right now. So, the issues that we have right now is the backers going back and forth between scrape fits and plug fits. Our four eyes playing five techniques and having to squeeze down blocks and spill. And we're asking them to two gap right now. So any base blocks or any run blocks at them, we're asking them to win back inside in the B gap. And so we're struggling a little bit with that right now, but it's going to take time. It's something that I don't want to get away from yet. But it's something that right now we're just not very good at. Because we play so much tight front. So, we're trying to figure out how much three deep we can play, how much drop eight we can play. Feel like we're a little bit more active up front, that we can generate pressure, sending, less people. Obviously, anytime you send three, you're not trying to generate pressure. If you get home, it's a bonus. But the way I look at the game that we play and the people that we play, pass rush is not our number one priority because the ball comes out of the quarterback's hands so quickly. To generate a pass rush in a high school setting where there's not a lot of drop back passes thrown, to me, is kind of counterintuitive. So we worry more about coverage than we do pass rush. Obviously, we have our 4-man deals and then our 5 and our 6-man deals when we absolutely feel like we need to generate pressure. But that's not the deal right now. That's not really what we're concerned with. So, run fits is always day one for me. It's my first concern, especially when we're changing fronts. How much can we do? How many different fronts can we play? How many different pictures can we give our linebackers from a theory of how to fit runs? How do our back end coverages fit with how we're trying to fit runs? Working with our force fold players, our Sam linebacker or nickel, whatever you want to call them, and then our safeties that have to play a bunch of sky support away. Working on our fits with our middle safety because that's a brand new kid playing that spot. Those are all the things we're going through right now. Yes, we carry pressures in the spring. I feel like, and I've been told by several people that we probably pressure more than anybody else does in the spring. That's kind of who we are. It's kind of what we do. So obviously, if it's part of your identity, it's something that you have to work on. So, but for me right now, tomorrow is a defensive day for us, and we'll have an inside run period, and that inside run period will have no movements. It'll be all base fronts and base coverages and base techniques to continue to work on fitting runs from base defense. We'll have a blitz period where all of our movements will probably be tied into that blitz period where, now we're in a 15-minute team period. Now we're working on all the movements. We're working on the coverage components behind the movements, and then we'll have a regular team period. And that team period tomorrow will probably have no movements whatsoever. We'll play tight front, we'll play Okie, and then we'll play our 4 down over stuff, but we won't move tomorrow because I'm just not sold on how we play base defense right now. So, that's the other thing about coaching that you have to understand is you have to understand how to change practice plans. You have to understand how to fit practice plans to the things that you are trying to get done and what you need to get done. So, at the end of today's practice, when I sit down with the head coach and he asks us what we need tomorrow, my answer was we need an inside run period. We need a movement period, And then we need a base team period where everything we do is from base stuff. And we're trying to fit runs and figure out how to play coverages when we're base. So we'll keep all of our movements and pressures in one 10-minute period. And we'll work on only pressures in that period and get our kids in a mindset of pressuring for that 10 minutes. And then we'll go back to base stuff. And our inside run period tomorrow will be all of our base front stuff. And we'll work with our nickel and our overhang safeties on their fits and, flow and are they vice players, cutback players? Are they force players? Obviously with inside run, there's not a ton of force. We got to make sure we keep leverage on the front side, but there's no runs that are really working their way outside in an inside run segment. So that'll be what we work on tomorrow. We'll do tackling circuits tomorrow. The tackling circuits will probably be some type of fitted period on a crash pad with a dip and rise bag where we get our kids in a good fitted position. We work on really bringing the back leg through, rolling the hips, striking. We're already started in the fit position. So the overall strike, we're putting them in a strike position and we're working on the hip roll, the leverage, striking on the rise, started from a good position and then trying to climb triple joint extension with our hip roll and how we're trying to strike on the rise. So that'll be one of the stations tomorrow. And then there'll probably be a sideline bag drag where we're working on some of our what I would call disadvantage, poor leverage tackles where they're not profile tackles. And then there'll probably be a close space. Probably tomorrow we'll do some type of two-man vice drill where we'll keep the space really close and the first guy has a chance to make an open field tackle and the second guy has to fit off of either his leverage or if he misses that tackle, we need a second guy that can come in and clean some things up. So we change that drill all the time. Sometimes we'll do a 2-on-2 leverage or a 2-on-1 leverage deal where we'll put a blocker down with a ball carrier behind him and we'll put two defenders down. The blocker and the two defenders will start on their stomach. And when the whistle blows, that blocker can choose either defender that he wants to block. That player has to now compress that block, keep your outside arm and leg free, try and drive that block back into the ball carrier. And the other guy now has to play the leverage of that block and make a one-on-one tackle off of that. So, we change those drills all the time. We do tackling circuits every day. Closing, tracking, getting into a good power position, not having your hips too far behind you, striking on the rise, running your feet, what you're doing with your hands, all those things are things that we work on all the time. So there'll be a tackling circuit tomorrow. We'll probably have an indie period. And then based on what I think we need, I'll kind of lay out some ideas for our position coaches. I coach the middle safety. We have a safeties coach, a corners coach, a D-line coach, an inside linebacker coach. And so we're kind of, we're privileged to have a lot of guys there. They're all still kind of learning the ropes. We have a lot of young coaches, a lot of guys that I think have a chance to be good coaches. So I've got to keep doing my job as a coordinator. I got to help them with the practice plan. I got to give them drills that they can do and things that we're struggling with and try to give them ideas of how they can work things that we're struggling with into drills, right? Because as a coach, I think one of the hardest things to do is I'll get to that in a minute, cold draw. I think one of the hardest things to do as a newer coach is to plan an indie period. And I did a video the other day on indie versus EDD. And I think a lot of coaches, when they get indie time, they fill the indie time with EDD drills. And EDD drills to me are what you call everyday drills. And those are things like stance and start and back pedals and, things that you would do every day. And a lot of young coaches fill their indie time with EDDs. And to me, when you're in the spring with installs and things that you're struggling with, that's not necessarily what indie should be. EDDs, if you had the perfect world and you had a pre-practice period, that's where I think you could be doing some of your EDD drills in a pre-practice period. So then in your indie period, you could fit in, trying to find a way to put drills in that are conducive to what you are struggling with, right? So if you have guys that are struggling with understanding when to be a vice cutback player and when to set an edge and be a force player, well, then you need to do drills that replicate that. If your backers are struggling with plug fits or scrape fits or, whatever you're trying to teach, then you need to do drills with that. If you're, struggling with 5 techniques that are struggling, if you're asking them to be spill players and they're struggling with down block spill stuff, then you need to do that, right? So indie shouldn't be just EDD drills. You can, if you had a 15-minute indie period, 5 minutes can be EDDs, and then 10 minutes needs to be finding a way to take drills that you can incorporate into indie that carry over into game settings. Sometimes you got to take groups, on the indie periods, I'll put corners and safeties. You're going to be together. Yeah, it's a good hat. It's one of my favorites, one of our originals. Hopefully got some new stuff coming out in the future because this is still in black and orange and a lot of our stuff is black and red now. But, dome hats to the moon where, everything I wear is pretty much a dome hat unless I am representing a company that sends me a hat. And then I try to get them to get dome hats to work with them. So I only wear dome hats, but, however you got that hat, if you want it somewhere, God bless you. One of my favorite hats that I wear all the time when I'm doing my YouTube stuff. So, that's the toughest part as a young coach. Everybody talks about schemes and everybody talks about, pedals and transitions and stance and start and stuff like that. And as a position coach, you've got to find a way to get through to your players and you got to find a way to get your players better and building an indie practice that is built around drills that you need to do, to get better. Awesome. Yeah, we did some, especially during COVID, we had some really good Twitter stuff we were doing to try and, to stay relevant, not only with Play Fast, but Dome Hats was trying to stay relevant in a world where you couldn't get out and talk to people. And, so 2 years ago, the business world was different. So we were just trying to find a way to do some things to keep people involved and keep eyes to the product. And I'm glad you were a winner and I'm glad you still have the hat. So cold draw, we are currently, our 5 techniques are spilling and we're trying to spill. That's something that we are currently doing right now. Definitely wrong arm deals off of down blocks with pullers. We're surfing off of zone read stuff or option stuff. So, we're squeezing every down block right now. Haven't got into dent technique stuff in the spring, but we're also boxing some of our pressure. So we got both techniques going on right now. So we've got some wrong arm spill stuff going on, and we've got some box stuff going on in our 5 and 6 man pressure. So they've got to do both. We've got to teach them both. And that's one of the things that we're struggling with right now is, we can do each technique when it's taught, when it's live and it changes from down to down, and knowing what technique needs to be played and then executing that technique during that down is one of the things we're struggling with. Because we have a lot of new guys, a lot of new parts in there, so we're trying to work through those things right now. And that's just something that like down block, squeeze, spills, surf. That's just reps. You got to see it. You got to get your guys not to look in the backfield. You got to get them to read a key. You got to do block rec stuff with them over and over and over again. So, that just takes time and it takes disciplined kids. And, as a D-line guy, I always stand on the other side. I never coach from behind the D-line. I always coach from behind the O-line. I want to see eyes. I want to see where we're looking. I want to see if our eyes are in the right place. So that's just a pet peeve of mine. So that's the argument with spill versus dent. Spilling in nature is a 1-for-1 deal. When you get a kid that spills, you're trying to make the ball bounce. You're trying to eliminate vertical entry. But when you get the kid that spills so hard that he ends up, you'll get kids that'll turn and run so hard inside that they almost bypass them and don't even waste a blocker on them. So that becomes a little bit of an issue. You got to get the kid that can spill wrong arm and pry back upfield. As soon as he makes contact with the wrong arm and he's got his helmet in the spot that it needs to be so that there is no vertical entry, he's then got to work his way back upfield into the blocker and not continue flat down the line, because when you get that kind of turn and run spill theory, you'll get teams that'll go beyond that and they'll let him spill and they'll take the ball wider than him, and they'll still have blockers there because, whether it's power read, bash, stuff like that, where he kind of eliminates himself because he spills so hard. So, um, you know, that technique is tough. It's tough for kids to do. Um, the toughest part right away is getting eyes right. So on a down block, you don't go up the field. Um, if you have kids that are up the field players, then you're going to need to box and figure out how to change your fits inside of that. If you got defensive ends that you don't want to give up 1-for-1 on spill stuff, then you're going to try and dent and get those kids to squeeze, but play it thick and make plays. If you've got an active defensive end, it's a really good player. Um, the years that the 2 or 3 years that I had Division I defensive ends, I didn't like spilling with them because I felt like we were giving up a really good player um, to send the ball to other players that maybe weren't as talented. So that just comes from experience year to year, trying to figure out what's best for you. Um, you know, Coming off that middle school game the other night, you see nothing but box at the middle school level, the Pop Warner level. I never understood this. I know why. Um, because when teams are tossing the ball to their fastest player, um, teams are getting the ball to the perimeter. I realize that at the youth level, the ball on the perimeter causes a lot of issues. A really fast kid that gets a toss and outruns everybody causes issues. But I don't see a world where we teach kids to just run up field. Um, you know, you're really not trying to generate pass rush at the middle school Pop Warner level. Nobody drop back passes. So, living in a world where kids just run up the field, to me, just creates issues, not only for your defense, but for those kids that are playing, because it's so hard for me to go from high school back to middle school and tell these kids that, hey, look, like when we're running our gap schemes, we're trying to tell kids that we think we're probably going to face upfield players, and which was great for our gap schemes because that's exactly what you want, right? You want the guys that box and don't really understand how to fit box schemes. So it's one of those deals where that's where the game of football is so different. And if I had more time to spend at the youth level, that's one of the places I would spend more time. Um, I would spend more time teaching kids how to squeeze and spill, and because that's what they're going to be asked to do in high school. And that's kind of the nature of the beast of what defenses are trying to get to. You want to deny vertical entry, and um, for some reason at the lower level they want vertical entry, which I really don't understand. I know there's a lot of double eagle played and a lot of teams that can't block those fronts. So you'd like to keep the ball inside and in front if you could. But for me in high school, it's one of those deals that it's vertical entry and the ball going downhill is just not a good way to live. So, that's the hard part of bouncing back and forth between middle school and high school. And at the same time, I know why those guys do it. They're trying to win games. They're trying to do the things that their kids can do. And, now some of those guys don't know what squeezing and spilling is, so they can't teach anything different. And I certainly understand that. But if I ever have a chance to be involved in something and I have a chance to be involved where I can educate coaches on how the game is played, um, then I will certainly try and do that. If it is not successful, then I will revert back to the things we need to do, because if I'm an assistant coach working for a head coach and he's trying to win games, and I'm going to figure out a way that we can win games, and I'm going to teach those kids what we need to do to win games. But from the get go, from the rip, and that's one of the reasons Jeff brought me down with him 2 years ago to coach Pop Warner, and this year now to coach middle school, is he would like the techniques that high schools are teaching taught, because he knows those kids are going to play high school football. So a little bit of a catch-22 there with what you try to teach that you would teach in high school and what you can actually do in middle school, but that makes it fun and interesting. So, it was a little bit different to figure out what we actually can do and what we need to do and what we're trying to do an hour previous at the practice I was at. So that makes it fun. That made it part of the cool deal about it. Square to that pole, keeps them squeeze and be athletic with down balls. Are you fighting over the top, or are you telling your kids just if our one tech, if we're playing even front and the one technique or the two eye got a back block from the center, we would hump it over the top. Um, we try not to just penetrate. I've never been, unless I have some guys that are just that freaky and they can't handle them. I've never been a just penetrate guy. I don't think that's a great way to play football. A lot of people have success doing that, um, but I don't think that's the greatest way to play. So the way I look at it is when you get a down block pull scheme, the offense is adding numbers to a side, and you got to figure out how you're going to add numbers. So, um, if they have angles on a backside will linebacker and he's not going to be able to get over the top, or he can't plug to create a number, well, then somebody's got to create a number because you're going to be short a guy. So, if they get the two eye back blocked and they get the will doubled, if they double a three to the will and he's blocked and the two eyes blocked and they're taking a guard and adding them front side, how are you equating that number front side? So, good evening, Damien. Glad you could be here. So certain fronts we play, we hump, over the top of down blocks or back blocks. And, obviously, if you have a three technique that's being doubled, that's a little bit different. You're not going to hump that. You're going to try and anchor the double team and keep guys off of linebackers. But if you had a pin pull scheme where the three technique was blocked and his visual key pulls outside the down block, that's something you would certainly think about possibly getting over the top of. So, that so many different blocking schemes that you're going to see and different shades that you're playing with your guys and, what you're trying to do with those guys based on the fronts you're playing. So all those things come with time and reps and your visual key and then your pressure key and what you're looking at. And if your visual key pulls outside of you and your pressure key down blocks you, then that's certainly a scenario where, you are probably going to try and get over the top of that. Or if your three technique is that good, if he penetrates and he causes issues, if it's a team trying to run buck or if it's a team trying to run pin pull and your front side guy penetrates so hard that the pullers can't get there or he's forcing the ball to do something different, then obviously that is a theory, right? If guys trying to penetrate are getting down blocked and that down block now washes them three gaps removed, then that theory is not good either because they're adding bodies with pullers and you're running guys out of the play, with down blocks that are washing them down. And that's the same thing with movement, right? When you start moving and you get washed, guys that are moving have a tendency in high school to get washed three gaps removed. So to me, it just creates bigger windows, bigger vertical running lanes. So that's why we try not to move as a base defense, but we do move a bunch. So so we play, and to me that also can be kid to kid. If you got a kid with a great kid off and he can beat down blocks and back blocks, then you can penetrate, right? If a kid can't do that and he can't penetrate and make issues, then he's wasting himself with back blocks and down blocks because normally when there's a back block or a down block, the ball is going somewhere else, especially with pullers, whether it's pin pull or counter schemes or something else. They're creating extra blockers to a side that you got to create extra blockers too, right? So, a lot of times for us, the extra fitter becomes the middle safety, but we still got to get backers involved. Especially when we're playing. The great thing about tight front stuff that I tell people all the time is, when you see gap schemes, you're creating a lot of, down back block situations where you create three one-on-one opportunities, right? So a lot of the times in our tight front, if we get gap schemes, we get the center back on a four eye, a guard down on a nose, and a tackle back on a four eye. Well, number one, that keeps our linebackers clean. Number two, that creates three one-on-one opportunities for D linemen that eventually, if you want to play good defensive football, you would better win some of those one-on-ones. If they can block you one-on-one, then you're not a very good football team, right? So it's the same thing with pass rush, right? When you're designing pressures or stunts or things that you think are really good in pass rush, if the O-line picks it up but you create three or four one-on-ones, just because the pressure doesn't get home unblocked doesn't make it a bad pressure, right? Bill Belichick says all the time, if you play a really bad offensive line, then you need to get into a lot of five-man deals and create one-on-ones, right? So whether it be bear looks or like the penny front stuff that everybody talks about on social media and how you're creating those bear front deals and, get guards one-on-one with your best interior rushers, get somebody one-on-one with a center and get, at least one edge rusher one-on-one if they have to chip the other guy or if they have to leave seven in protection. Now you're mitigating the routes that you can see because they can only get three guys out in a route because they have to max protect, right? So creating one-on-ones in the run game and the pass game is a really good deal if kids can learn how to win one-on-one, right? So, you know, and that's where spilling to me becomes kind of sometimes you're wasting a hat for a hat, right? You're telling a kid to you're forcing the ball to do something that you want, but you're taking a player almost out of the play. So, there's times to spill, there's times to box, there's times to dent, there's kids to spill, kids to box, kids to dent. So, um, to me, it's a case by case, player by player scenario. Backers who are guard reads. What is the easiest way to teach gaps run to me? I have no, the way we try to teach it off of backfield sets and backfield flow. So like if it's a one back team that's offset, um, if it's a, I'll get to that in a minute, Damien. If it's a one back team that's offset and not pistol, my first thought is if the back is to me, I'm going to stack track fallback C. If the back's away, I'm probably going to get ready to hammer the A if there's no pullers. So if there's duo schemes, zone schemes, things that involve no pullers, if that's the backfield action, then that's my first mindset. Back to me, stack track, fallback C, back away, hammer the A off the nose, right? Our nose lags, but he doesn't always lag, and the A gap backer has to fit off the nose, right? So again, if that's tight flow, inside flow, downhill flow, then that's the thought process. Our team is doing some pistol stuff right now. So all right, so the theory would be for the backers cold draw. If the back is to me, I stack track fallback C. If the back is away, I'm getting ready to hammer the open A, right? So offset back, and I'm the backer to the side of the offset back, and he takes a mesh downhill inside. I'm probably going to be the stack track fallback player. My other backer is going to be the A gap hammer player, right? Now, if that was fast flow where that back went across the quarterback's face laterally, well, now it's just going to switch. The back to the fast flow is going to be the C gap player, and the back that's away from the backer that's away from it is going to be the A gap player off the nose, right? So, we base it off the backfield sets, but then we base it off of flow. And what that is it tight flow? Is it fast flow outside? Is it, is he parallel to the quarterback and he's going across his face? Is he deeper than the quarterback and he's coming downhill? Those are deals where, yeah, you would swap the fit. The other guy would go to the C. So to me, the reason we play it well is because tight front to me with a 3-2 box is so easy. Those guys are A to C players. There should never be an open B gap. They should never have to worry about an open B gap. We shouldn't have as many issues with RPO deals because there are no open B gaps, and that's where the spread teams want to live. They want to live in open B gap world. So, that's why we play tight. Now, getting back to Damien's question, 3-man surfaces become an issue. You're now giving a tackle leverage and a tight end leverage on a linebacker. Those become an issue. Pin pull schemes are an issue. The ball is outside, falling off the pool table quicker than people want it. So C gaps are an issue. C gap away from the Sam is an issue. So you have your things that you have to work on, and you got your things that you need to take care of. And then your middle safety needs to be a guy that can fit and run the alleys of plays because there's going to be weak side runs where you need him to show up to equate the hats if you're getting pullers, right? Obviously tight front you don't get a great pass rush, right? The leverage, your four eyes are constantly getting down blocked by tackles. And, depending on how good your four eye is, maybe they don't make as many plays. They don't get a chance to rush the passer. Just those simple issues, 3-man surfaces, 12 personnel with double 3-man surfaces and heavy personnel groups. Those are all the things that are going to give tight front issues. So, you got to know how to protect the C gap. We've got a couple different deals. We got some 2x2 deals where we can protect the C gap with our middle safety. And then, we've got some deals with our Mike where, we can make the Mike an edge rusher from the field, or we can make him an edge rusher away from the Sam, like some mint front stuff. So, you got to have your protection. We need more of those protection pieces built in because we're a better tight front team. That's what we do. We're not a great even front team. We're not a great, 4-down shaded front team. We're not a great Okie front team. We're a better tight front team. So we've got to do some things to protect the C gaps, and we got to do some things to help with three-man surfaces. So there's times where we'll make calls. You got to remember the way we teach defense. Our mic is not in any of our coverages other than our drop eight stuff. So the mic for me is a hybrid movement guy. That's a guy that I can bring him weak side and make him a fourth rusher and play mid front. I can bring him front side, and if we get three-man surfaces, I can make him a 7 technique on it to a three-man surface, because he's not the way we play with our middle safety. He replaces the mic in all of his quarters and palms drops, and so 4 strong is the only time we account for the mic in our base coverages. Our spot drop, 3 deep stuff is different. That's all 8-man front. Spot drop stuff, and the mic is a strong 3 hook player. So when we're playing our base stuff, for us, the mic is a guy that when we need to protect. So if I need to protect the C gap to the field, I can just play the mic to the field and make him a 7 tech or a wide rusher from the field and play tight front and still fit things very similarly with, sometimes we gotta jockey the middle safety with some things, but it fits very similar to our tight front stuff. So we have our protection pieces. We have things that we like, but we're always looking for other answers. So pistol stuff, you're balanced to both sides. There's no way teams that try to set the front, teams that are trying to dictate where they want the 3 technique. There is no way to set the 3 technique off the back. You have inside zone or duo both ways. You have wide zone both ways. There aren't as many tells in the run game. Issues, pass protection, getting that guy where he might need to be in pass protection. Some of your meshes for RPOs, I don't like as much from the pistol. The timing of it with where he is compared to offset back stuff. Definitely advantageous to making it tougher on, like for us in our tight front fits, we can't tell the backers which backer is going to be the fallback C gap and which guy is going to be the A gap player until the pistol player and the quarterback mesh, and now basically the side the quarterback opens to, that's going to be the fallback C gap player, and the other guy is going to be the hammer A gap player. So, it makes it tougher for us to read things. So I think you have less tells than when the back is offset. I think you have less quarterback run game when you're in the pistol. You don't have bash theories. You don't have your power read theories are tough to do. Getting the tailback to the perimeter now becomes wide zone stretch type stuff. Maybe some toss stuff, but I think it takes a lot of the read game and the quarterback read game out of it. It makes it tougher on the defense setting the front. It makes it tougher on the defense figuring out where they're fitting certain runs. So, it definitely has its pluses and its minuses. Guys like how, they like pistol guys downhill. They think it keeps their shoulders square a little bit better, the downhill stuff. So, definitely has its advantages, has its disadvantages, but you got to know who you are and what you do. And if you're a big quarterback run guy, I probably wouldn't be, there's pistol read game that you can use, but you're going to lose a lot of your bash theories. You're going to lose a lot of your, maybe read toss theories or power read toss or dart toss or GT toss games. Some of your jet sweep stuff, you're going to lose a little bit. So, those are, to me, some of the pluses and minuses, but it's good for what it's good for. It hurts what it hurts, and it attacks the defense in a way that attacks it, but it also hurts some things. So it's all a matter of what you're trying to get done. What you're trying to do to affect the defense. If you're not a pistol team, then you should probably jump the back. Have some deals where you jump the back from one side to the other. So you start them on one side, they set the 3 technique there, you jump them, you're going to make them either post snap move if they want to get the 3 technique to the back, or you're going to make them shift the front. So you're making them think a little bit more. So, start with the back in the pistol and set them late. Those are all things that you can do, if you don't like being in the pistol. So I coach at Bishop Kenny High School in Jacksonville, Florida, private school, 5A school, 1,600 students. I'm just a defensive coordinator now. I'm not a head coach anymore. So I try to help people on offense when I can. If not, I just worry about defense right now. So that's the world that we are living in right now. So last couple minutes, anybody, I know if there's any NFL guys out there, whoever you root for, what did you think of the draft? Were you a fan of the draft? Were you surprised at how many offensive guys went first? Are you surprised that, to me, that's a little bit different. Normally, I think there's a lot more defensive guys that go, but a run went on offensive guys. Defensive guys went late. Are you surprised how late some of the corners went? How late some of the edge rushers went? That's thank you, sir. Um, that's a deal that guys that follow the NFL, like, obviously I'm in Jacksonville, so a little bit surprised at what they decided to do. Receiver was a position of need, but there were some good edge rushers and some good corners, and that's also a position of need. So I think the draft fell pretty good for them with four quarterbacks going early. That just pushed better players down the line. Then when, Latham and Joe Alt went and offensive linemen went, that started to put a premium on those guys. So now that's putting more defensive players down to the teams that needed to take defensive players. But if the receiver was their guy, they traded back to get him, then that's a great move for the Jags. So, draft stuff's interesting. The NFL, I've never been a huge NFL guy because I don't think I can take as many theories from the NFL and use them in high school. But, NFL talk is interesting. At this time of year, it's about all you got. College spring games, maybe if anybody's a fan of college spring games, if you watch some of that stuff, I peek at it just to see what they're doing and what they're trying to do. So, that's kind of the only stuff going on right now. So that's the only football out there. So, but now that the draft is over, it's rookie camps and OTAs, and then we get a little bit of a lull over the summer, and then it gets right back into it. So not much else to talk about if you're not coaching football right now. If you don't have spring football, there's not a lot going on. So what else are you going to talk about? So, you know, interesting how the offensive guys went. Interesting to see how many quarterbacks went early. And then interesting to see where some of the other pieces fell. So, but that's pretty much it for us right now, guys. What we're doing, what we're working on, what we're trying to do. Been on for almost an hour. I appreciate all you guys asking questions. I appreciate the comments. Make sure at the top of the chat, I put all of our partners. None of this happens without our partners that we work with. Obviously, Dome Hats with the hat I'm wearing. Brand Tech USA is a new company out of Wisconsin I'm working with. They made some custom stuff, created a store that I'm going to open up again. I'm going to give them some ideas and maybe some items people want. They had custom PlayFast sneakers, sandals, Crocs, that they call clogs, some hoodies, some long sleeve shirts. So they made some PlayFast gear that they made custom, that they have custom sublimation. That's what they do. They also have some weight room disinfectant, locker room disinfectant stuff. They have some fundraising platforms. They distribute the Q collar, kind of a Swiss Army knife of companies that do a lot of stuff. So Brand Tech USA is a company that we're trying to get more eyes to nationally and trying to help them with their social media stuff, and started working with Fly Route drones. We use drones for our practices. We use drones for, everything we do. So, trying to, working with them now, trying to get people certified, drone certification, trying to get people to understand how much easier drones can be than end zone cams, how much easier it is to set them up for practice than it is. End zone cams are still great for games. A lot of times a lot of states you can't use drones at games and fly them over crowds. So even if it's just for practice, it's 100% worth it. So check out Fly Route Drones. Baker Sporting Goods, the local company. We use all of our stuff at Bishop Kenny. Spirit Packs, uniforms. We've got a new Nike deal with them. So Baker Sporting Goods is our local sporting companies that we use. Difference USA is a striking machine that we use. We have a couple of those in our weight room that we use for teaching kids how to strike and how to strike violently. Aaron Consulting is a recruiting company that I market for. I like what they do, what Dan Fodracy and his group does. They're trying to educate people about recruiting, but they're also educating people about how to keep the head coach involved. And nowadays in the spring, right now, every coach that comes in, they all go talk to the high school football coach. So why you wouldn't want that guy involved in your recruiting is beyond me. So, I promote what they do with their recruiting consulting work because it's good stuff. And Game Strats, the sideline replay company we use. So I've been using them for 5 years now. So every company that I work with, that I market for, that I advertise for, that they're all companies where, I either like what they're doing or I use their product. Right. So, I have Dome Hats. I wear Dome Hats. I have Baker Sporting Goods stuff. I have custom stuff from Brand Tech. We have drones at Bishop Kenny. We use GameStrat. I use Difference USA. Aaron Consulting. when I was a head coach is something that I really appreciate them because they try to educate about the recruiting process, but they're trying to educate parents on how to keep the head coach involved. So every company that I promote, I partner with is people. It's either a product I use or a product that I see the value in. So again, I know a lot of you guys don't like when we do videos and there's promoting stuff, but all these videos you can be, you can scrub through, you can fast forward through if you're not into it. We wouldn't be here without those partners. So, they're great companies that I work with, and I'm always going to take my time, regardless of what people think, to not only thank them but represent them and try and get more eyes to their product. Right? That's what social media is. That's what influencing is, and that's what YouTube is. We're trying to get eyes to products that help play fast football. So, again, appreciate all you guys being here. Thanks for jumping on a Monday night. If you have any other questions, you can email me, sting8740@gmail.com. If you're interested in any of the virtual clinics we did, you can email me at sting8740@gmail.com, and I will tell you how you can get your hands on that. I'm also late May, beginning of June, I'm going to try and do a virtual clinic, try and get some of our partners and our sponsors involved so we can keep the price down for everybody, but try and get on in line and do a virtual clinic at the end of May, beginning of June. So did a couple last year. They were $10 a piece. Try to get more sponsors involved so we can keep the cost down for people. But, definitely worth your while. I've got about 11 of them that we've done. Really good speakers, really good topics. So if you're interested in that, send me an email. If you have any questions, send me an email. Hit me up on Twitter. You leave a comment on a YouTube video, leave a comment on a live video, and I always try and get back when people respond. So appreciate you guys, what you do for the game of football. Appreciate what you do promoting Play Fast. Glad you could be here on Monday night. Thanks for listening to me ramble for 56 minutes. Remember, you won't play well until you play fast. I will see all of you next time.